Hello, everyone. Welcome to the second episode of the God Mode Pod. Last week we were called the AI Techies. This week, from now on, it's the God Mode Pod. We made a democratic vote, and yeah, here we are, the God Mode Pod. We also had our producer Nick do a bunch of research, and we've been sharing everything that's been said in our WhatsApp group to Nick. And Nick made this very nice docket that we are going to use. So I'll bring it up already. And yeah, whoever wants to find this docket, it's live on our website as well. So you can always go in and check it out after recording. Let's just dive straight in. Ben has a hard stop, so we are not going to waste too much more time. If you want to get a little introduction of all the guests, of me, Luca, and Ben, go listen to the first episode on our YouTube or Spotify. But yeah, let's dive straight in because something crazy happened last night, actually. Jack Dorsey basically announced that he is laying off half of his company. And not because the company is doing bad, but because AI is much more productive and much better at doing those jobs than the people. And the crazy thing is actually that the stock price of his company went up 30% after this announcement or after this news. That's huge in my opinion. Kind of reminds me of when many companies a year ago started announcing Bitcoin strategic reserves, and when a company announced their Bitcoin strategic reserve, then their stock went up. And I feel like this could be the first of many of companies announcing that they're gonna save costs by implementing AI and laying off their humans. Ben, you sent me this article last night. What's your thought here?
Yeah, well, it's fascinating, and I think I read somewhere that this is the biggest job cut on a percentage basis out of any S&P 500 company in history, right? So more jobs were kind of made redundant in this than anywhere else. And I mean, Jack's like a leader in this space. Even look at his handle. It's literally Jack, right? He created Twitter. This guy basically runs a lot of the internet that we run off of. I don't know. My first thoughts here is like, if we look at like 2021, there were this crazy tech hiring, right, with ZIRP, zero interest rates. And then from there's been kind of this beginning of this year, there was a lot of FUD, right? Fear, uncertainty, doubt around tech and SaaS particularly, and kind of seeing like our SaaS, is SaaS dead, right? That was the narrative. And Jack really is tapped into narratives, I think, pretty well. And he kind of sees like, look, I think there was this like quote that said, I forget who said it, 80% of jobs at tech companies are not really needed. It's just they don't know which of the 80% of people are in that subset. And with using AI, I think you can probably have a better sense of like who's actually needed and necessary and who's not. You, me, like Rick, Luca, myself, like we're all seeing firsthand like just how much you can get done with one person. And I think Jack's like leaning into that full stop. Probably we'll end up seeing similar things from big tech companies in like the next couple months, I'd say. It's hard making a podcast. There's so many technical things. I feel like it shouldn't be this hard, but it is.
I
Once you get it done.
shared the system that we're building with the girl. She was also working in the co-working today, and she's doing a podcast for the last 5 years. And I showed her what we've been building just by talking to Nick, and then like from collecting the ideas to voting on the ideas to putting it into slides, all automated pre-production. And she's like, "Oh my god, how can I use this? How can I use this?" I'm like, "Oh
That's
yeah, we'll
awesome.
turn this into a SaaS over the next 2 weeks."
Honestly, not a bad idea.
We're
Yeah.
discussing our podcast SaaS, how we're gonna productize Nick.
Ooh, I like. Not so complicated, because you just create the front end for people to connect,
Exactly.
like where they're uploading. Jack Dorsey is actually, usually I look at him as quite an ethical person who thinks about things with quite an interesting philosophy. And this post actually is very like cold and just stating the fact. So I'm curious to know more about his deeper thoughts on what this means for the nature of work and humanity.
Yeah, it goes into maybe also the retweet of CZ, where he said the reality nowadays is learn to use AI to the max or be laid off. We had a call with one of your friends, Luca, the guy who runs 15 businesses at the same time, basically by himself and some employees. He brought everyone together and said, guys, you're not going to lose your job to AI, but you're going to lose your job to the people that actually use AI. And that was his main ethos now. And I think that's basically also what's sort of going to happen in those bigger companies, the people that are actually adopting AI and know how to use AI and turn the business processes basically into AI-enabled processes, but then having a human that can run it is going to be much more valuable than people that are not using AI. And the people that are not using or don't want to learn and use AI, I guess they are the ones being fired.
I'm starting to realize that like it's incredibly reckless in this world to not learn AI, right? It's becoming to the point where like if you're not investing 10%, 20%, even honestly like 50% of your time in implementing these tools on a daily basis, you're going to be left behind. How many websites even like in the SaaS world like haven't been updated in like a few years? Like it's so clear to me the products that are being paid attention to in this AI world versus not. And so yeah, I don't know. Last week we talked about Mark Cuban and how he said 33 million businesses in the US are small to medium size that could be using AI. And it makes me wonder how many of them are not leaning into AI, but realistically, like you really just need to focus on it and keep your finger on the pulse as we keep going.
Mm. And sometimes the question comes up to me, like the people that are so focused on their job, they don't really have the time to experiment with AI. And that's like a bit of a double-edged sword because those people are focused on their job, but they're the ones that might be laid off the soonest because they are not the ones experimenting. While people that actually have the freedom or the freedom of mind and doing whatever they want, basically, like us, we are experimenting with AI 24/7, trying to build stuff. We know the capabilities, what it can do for those businesses. So we might actually be the reason that those other people are going to be fired if we implement those systems.
Most, if not all, white collar tasks can be replaced by AI within 12 to 18 months. So this was said by the CEO of Microsoft AI. I don't know. That's a crazy concept to think about, but it really does, you know, give me a pause when I'm talking to all my friends who have W-2 and, you know, they're W-2 employees and they're kind of working their 9 to 5 job. It's like, okay, there's a trade-off where yes, you're making money now, but I don't know. You really need to kind of think long-term and how you can kind of hedge against both sides.
And that maybe also ties into the Citrini research piece that was going viral, right? This article is a pretty long article that's been going viral all week on Twitter, and there has been a bear case, and then other people came out with a counter argument for this whole article with the point of view when it's like 2028 and we're looking back at the past 2 years of what happened and how AIs took over the world and the bearish scenario for the world and the economy and how AI is going to impact that.
The part that I thought was kind of fascinating was around this kind of concept of real estate, right? So in 2008-9, which ironically 20 years later than this kind of June 2028, I wasn't sure if that was kind of emblematic, but basically the article goes on to say that all of these top tier real estate markets like Austin, San Francisco, New York City, Chicago, they are kind of the prices are so high because there's so many high paying jobs there from all these tech companies and healthcare and different industries. But now if those industries basically aren't employing people, they're not going to live there, right? They're going to start living in Montana or on a farm in Italy and going there. So I thought it was fascinating, this kind of concept of 2008 and real estate and how that kind of connects to today, where we might actually have like a really crazy real estate bubble brewing because essentially nobody in tech can get the income to pay for their mortgages anymore.
I don't know, random thought on this, but like, does that maybe change the way or like the importance of people living in a city? Because it's kind of like the reason people move to cities is for those high paying opportunities, that high paying work. What if finding that work is no longer needed in the city? Does society move more back to like rural areas in that sense?
Yeah, I already feel like we're moving in that direction. To me, Starlink is just an incredible unlock as well, right? Where now you can have an office anywhere in the world. You could be in the Amazon rainforest and I could be like recording this podcast. Like that just was not available 3 years ago. So to me, I mean, I go back to go back and forth like about like, okay, what is the strongman argument? Like, what do you guys think is the reason for cities to be having more demand? I don't know. I don't see a world where 10 years from now, cities are more kind of like prices of city properties have grown and kept up with, other asset prices.
When we're looking at this tweet, it's like the S&P is down from highs, but S&P is obviously the US. Aren't we kind of like, doesn't the world assume that I guess a lot of the upside from this technology is going to benefit people in the US or people in countries that actually are developing this technology? Wouldn't that mean that those people are more secure in the future versus other parts of the world where none of these unicorns or trillion-dollar companies are coming out from?
Just to add here, the tweet is a hypothetical scenario in 2028, right? And yes, they're focusing on the US because US is the leading market. Basically, that's where the AI models are coming out. That's where everything is pushed to the edge. And then you have China following with model development and all of that, but it's basically copy paste and done in a cheaper way.
But like I guess my point is like, because what I'm more worried about is like, okay, so if this technology works in a place like United people in the United States, maybe they're able to afford a UBI now because they have all of this abundance. But what about countries that then don't have these industries, right? I think that's where I would be more worried if I was thinking about a doomsday future.
But where is the UBI coming from?
The UBI is you need to tax companies, and if all of the most successful companies, AI companies in the world are on the US stock exchange, then the US economy is going to benefit from that. And for me, if you want to have a socialist society, you need capitalism to be able to afford it. So it's coming from that lens.
But I guess it's this chicken and egg, but between supply and demand, right? And who's paying for these services, right? I don't know. It's such a hard thing to say. I do agree with you 100%, Luca. I don't see a world where basically big companies aren't taxed the way that, you or I are taxed on our income, right? There's got to be a tax on robots, on AI, whether it's on the token level, on the actual bot level. I don't know, but there has to be that. But again, I then go back to, is the GDP going to really grow if these folks aren't being employed, they're not spending as much and all of that? I don't know. I mean, perhaps a UBI is funding people so that then they're going out and they're spending more in restaurants and that's propping up the economy. But yeah, it's an insane philosophical debate, I guess.
It is.
The bull scenario.
That quote is perfect. The doom loop has one fatal flaw. It assumes demand is fixed, and history says it never is. So yeah, I think that's what maybe makes me more optimistic about the future, is that at least from history, anytime we've become more efficient as a society, we've met that demand. And okay, sure, a product manager might go from a $200K salary to $200 a year, but I think there's going to be so many new responsibilities that we're going to have to find for humans that we're just not seeing what new kind of roles or jobs that will exist in the future.
What I found interesting here as well is, like, we see, for example, Adobe is down 30% on a yearly basis. There's other companies that are just going down because of a new Claude announcement. Like, Claude announces that they're doing security audits now. Boom, all security stocks are down 10% right after the news. Claude announces that it does certain coding language now, or it can do. Boom, IBM stock, a multi-billion-dollar company, is down 10%, which is incredible. And that's where you see the impact that Anthropic, or Claude specifically, like, have on the public markets. But then on the other side, which is the complete opposite, is then Jack Dorsey, which we just discussed, announces that he's going to cut staff, so less people in the company. And by that announcement, his stock pumps 30% up. So you have Anthropic destroying part of the market, and then now there's something new opening up where businesses that are optimizing for AI are actually being rewarded by the markets. And if that is going to continue and going to become a trend where companies that fire most of their staff to go AI first or AI native are being rewarded by the market is actually going to reward to have people being fired and to cut down half your employees. I don't know how that's going to shift fast over the next few years if all the companies are doing that. There's a lot of people ending up without a job, and there isn't, like, I don't know where they're going to end up or what they're going to do. Are they all going to become vibe coders? Not sure.
Look, maybe some of them, let's say that 50% of these people that left Block ended up, becoming entrepreneurs of some sort. I feel pretty confident that a decent amount of them are going to come out with something great, right? I even remember from my time at Amazon, just like looking around and thinking, man, these people, if they were working in like a startup or in another experience outside of their, this big Amazon company, they would be adding more to society than what they're doing at a big company. So yeah, I think it's a huge unlock. Even if a fraction of these folks end up, being able to start that next, AI first company, it could propel again, but it's a question of the demand side for me. I don't know where that part fits in exactly.
Well, maybe a flip on this take is maybe some of these companies are even threatened by the AI itself, so they're preparing for a world where maybe they don't have such a monopoly on software either.
Like, give an example.
And sometimes I'm getting this feeling that as I'm building out my products, I'm finding a lot more of the services I used to pay a subscription for, I can just build myself. So I think that's going to continue to become more feasible, and it cuts out a lot of additional plugins and services and tracking tools and dashboards that in the past I might have paid for, and now I'm just coding myself, and it's more custom, more tailored to what I'm trying to do. But I think like for a new business, that's really easy to do because you're building all your processes from scratch. But then obviously if you're a bit more of a legacy business, you're not going to do that overnight. So I think we'll see that happen when this new way of building a company maybe is more kind of established.
Yeah, so I agree. I mean, I think there's there's a bunch of different types of companies. To me, like a company like Salesforce, I totally see them starting to make even bigger cuts. I know they've done that in the last year, and they're going to continue to do that because to me, a CRM is something that's so easily capable of being vibe coded. I broke down like Block's revenue because I'm really trying to break down each part of the business and thinking like, do they fit into this like normal like SaaS bucket, right? 55% of their gross profit comes from Cash App. Cash App is a peer-to-peer payment transferring company in the US. To me, that's like a network effect type concept or product. And that's actually less susceptible to this whole SaaS wave and getting like cannibalized, right? Because I could build my own payment system, but it's not going to really take off because people aren't going to want to use it, right? They want to use a payment system that other people are using. The next one is like Square, the merchant point of sale, right? Payment processing. And to me, this is kind of similar to Stripe. I do think there are network effects there where like the more people you have on your payment processing, like you could actually, I don't think it's as susceptible to like getting SaaS. And then the last part is this Bitcoin mining aspect. And yeah, I could see that being like a plug and play. I'd imagine setting up a Bitcoin kind of operation to me, I think is fairly easier now with vibe coding, but there is still a lot of hardware involved there too. So I don't know. That's just like kind of wrapping up this whole like analyzing a block and saying like, is Jack doing this because he's scared, or is he doing this because he thinks that his business is like really way more efficient with people? And I think it is actually because he thinks it's more efficient with just AIs running it.
Like imagine investing in Atlassian and being down 70% in a year. This is like crypto returns, right? But this is $1 billion company, or billion plus, 1.6 billion year over year revenue. So the revenue is growing, but they're still down 70%. And this is all because of the reasons that you're describing, right? Like it's so easy to build your own CRM now. New businesses that are started are going to be AI optimized, and they're going to use the tools that are actually being useful for them. And all of these, they gotta hope that the legacy businesses stay on their platform. But if they will, like, I don't see a way how like this might be oversold now. It's just incredible to see that such big names that are being rolling up other big CRM tools are down 70%. I was so surprised hearing that. Yeah, just as an example, and this is not the only one. There's so many others that have had serious impacts because of AI. That yeah, it's just crazy.
It
Crazy
excites
how
me,
this
to
is
be honest,
going.
because I'm not one of them,
Exactly. That's it. Like, but even Figma was, remember when Adobe was talking about buying Figma and then they backed out and then Figma went public? Would you be scared as the CEO of Figma now when Claude Code can actually almost perfectly design a website? And yes, you can plug in Figma into your Claude and do some designs on Figma to then have Claude build it into code. But I wouldn't be surprised if Claude's design skills over the next 6 months are going to get better than the best designer out there. Would you be scared?
I think so. I mean, I think if I haven't used Figma myself much, but if they're not keeping up with at least, adapting in some way, I think they are obviously implementing some AI in their product. But then I guess the question is, are users still going to design in the traditional way? Probably. People still draw on paper. Is it going to be maybe not as fast a growing market because maybe there are other options out there that's a completely different way of designing and interacting with what you want to build? Yes, I think that's quite likely.
Yeah, because like companies are valued on their growth, right? And on their user growth and revenue growth. But if you're saying that there might be a part of the user base that actually starts designing with other tools because it's faster, cheaper, or AI can do it, then they are going to use part of their user base, and that takes from their growth, and that also then takes from their valuation and forward-looking valuations. And I think, yeah, there's so many like we've seen a few of them already, right, that have been crashed after Claude announcements, and I think there's going to be so much more to come. And I don't really know how they can jump on the AI. Like, just saying, yeah, we are building AI tools, or we're adding an AI wrapper on top of our tools, or we have MCPs and integrations with Claude, I don't think it's going to save many of those companies. Seems a bit like a last resort type of reaction. Yeah, 12 to 18 months. 12 to 18 months is what it's going to take, and that's what the Microsoft AI CEO said. Most, if not all, white-collar tasks can be replaced by AI within 12 to 18 months, and we are seeing that happening right now, right? The framing is your job is about to not exist, and there is 12 to 18 months procurement window. What do you ship before it closes? I think we have this sense of urgency now, and we felt it over the last few weeks, especially. But it's gonna it's gonna come to all old businesses as well, legacy businesses. And it's funny because plumbers. It's the second time now we talk about plumbers, and I think it's gonna come back more over the next episodes. But before, you needed, as a plumber business, you needed 10 plumbers, 3 dispatchers, 2 customer service support guys, 1 marketeer, and some admin staff. And basically, right now, the only thing that you need is the 10 plumbers to actually do the work. And you can use 1 or 2 AI managers if you automate and set up your business correctly. And then maybe 1 staff member that could manage the AIs. But maybe that's even what we mean with the AI managers. So yeah, the real world and everything is going to get impacted. And I think this comes down to, or back to, what we said last weekend as well with the Mark Cuban video, where AI is impacting not only big business, not only SaaS, not only technology stocks or technology companies, but it's also going to be impacting non-tech by enabling them with technology. I know, Ben, you've been thinking about plumber businesses for years now. Well, what do you think? How is this gonna go?
Yeah, I mean, I just looked it up. Okay, so in the 2000s, the average plumber made about $40,000 a year, and it was basically thought of as like a fallback, like last resort. Okay, I'll become a plumber, right? Then by 2010, the salary went up to $60K, right? So in 10 years, the salary of a plumber basically in the US went up by 50%. COVID then like really accelerated it, now to the point that I'm seeing online that plumbers can earn up to $250,000 a year, right? And that's an incredible change from where they were once earning 40,000. To me, I think like I do wonder, Tesla comes to mind when I think about this, because Tesla's building their Optimus robot, and that robot is going to be able to come in and be able to do some of these tasks. But plumbing feels like, as someone who has never plumbed in their life, plumbing feels like something that is incredibly nuanced and specific. Plumbing, electricians, carpentry, all of these professions are probably 10 to 20 years away from an Optimus robot really being able to go in there and be able to like replace the job. So going back to the Citrini research, another big takeaway that I had from there was that basically it said that for blue collar jobs like this plumbing one, AI actually facilitates and complements and helps them be more efficient as opposed to replacing, right? And so that was kind of the big unlock that I saw there was saying, oh, wow, like, yeah, like an Optimus robot will probably be able to stand on the side of the plumber and be able to help them with getting parts, maybe bringing stuff in from the truck so that they can go to 2 or 3 jobs on a given day. But we're still at a shortage of plumbers, clearly, because that's why the salaries are so high. And yeah, I don't know. To me, it's like, even if folks are now moving out of the cities, we're going to need more plumbers. I think that it makes a lot of sense where AI is basically just complementing the blue collar jobs rather than replacing them for the foreseeable future, at least.
Plumbers, yeah. I mean, it's from my side, I think it's not just plumbers, right? But I see people becoming more efficient, like you mentioned. Maybe there's a robot holding the ladder or parsing the wrench, but also there's some responsibility I feel as well, because at least so far there's been small errors that happen with the AI you're working with, and if you're using AI as a lawyer today, I think you're able to handle 10 or 20 clients when before you would only be able to handle 1 or 2, but you still need to kind of have that sign off. And I just think that, yes, it will just improve efficiency in many ways, which is just going to increase demand,
Yeah,
But, yeah.
I also think that all the knowledge work is going to be replaced first by AI, and then other work that can be replaced by robots will be replaced by robots. But if you want to stay safe, you got to find something to do that cannot be replaced by robots. And I think that's the safest place to be in, and that's, for example, those plumbers. They won't be replaced by robots yet.
Yeah, I think plumbers are often they're independent, right? They're self-employed. So hopefully we don't see a case where it's like one company owns all of the plumbers, right? But yeah.
Yeah, it won't be possible to roll up all the plumber companies in the world. Another big announcement that happened this week, which got a lot of views on Twitter, was Perplexity announcing the Perplexity computer, which I didn't use it. I'm curious if one of you guys used it, but what it looked like was basically an agent and multiple agents that you could summon off from your browser to go do things, basically an OpenClaw type of situation in your browser. Ben, have you been playing around with the new Perplexity yet?
No, I haven't. But why don't we just click on the Twitter? We could watch the video, or at least part of it,
Let's do
and
it.
then maybe we could spin off there.
Yeah, so it's
Right.
like everyone's releasing their own version of an OpenClaw in some sense.
I've seen many people also use Manus as their licensed OpenClaw. I feel like many people are now talking about Manus as well in terms of like agents doing things for you. But yeah, I here, perfect example of the Perplexity computer. I saw someone vibe code a Bloomberg terminal with a few prompts through this Perplexity computer, and Bloomberg terminal is at $30,000 per year or per month. What's the price of Bloomberg terminal? I don't know, but it's so expensive, and it can be vibe coded now, and it's real time data. The agents build it for you. So this is again another unlock, and Perplexity, the one thing they're known for is that the best research, or like together with Grok, in my opinion, if I want to research something, I want to be certain that things are correct, I use Perplexity or Grok. So yeah, Perplexity computer looks interesting if you need the right data and you want to build apps and summon agents to go and find things and be sure that they don't hallucinate.
Yeah,
And-
it feels like Perplexity computer is kind of like a deep research, but for kind of being able to go out on the internet, right? Which I guess is kind of what an agentic work is. I don't know. I just think that there's a lot of work on the infrastructure of how the internet is built, for whether it's like auth logins and being able to like crawl and browse things in like a readable way, that we'll have to see how accessible these things actually are, because if it can get like 80% of the way there, it still hasn't gotten all the way there, right? And that's kind of been the difficulty that I've seen with any of these agentic things. Like, I think Manus was the first thing where I saw that and I was like, wow, this is actually clicking around and it's moving, and maybe it's gotten 100% better from last year, but again, if it was 80% of the way there last year, now it's 90% of the way there this year.
Yeah, and that's Cloud Code has been leading the way anyway there, right? Like doing things for you and then just showing you some updates, but not everything, because nobody really needs to see what's been clicked and how it's been done as long as we see the results. When the original, I think it was Comet, right? Perplexity Comet was their original browser that they launched, and then at the same time, the Arc, or the browser company, and that's the one I'm using still, is came out with Dia, which was their AI-enabled browser. Now, I don't really use those AI features much, and I think what's the other one? ChatGPT had one coming out.
Atlas.
Yeah, but are they good? Are they that good? I haven't played around with all of them, so I cannot really compare well. But I don't think they're at their final stage yet, and like that's what you mentioned as well, right, Ben?
I
What's
feel like they're
the
not.
UI?
Well, yeah. For me, I mean, we could talk a little bit maybe in a little bit about OpenClaw and how we're using it on the podcast. But what's amazing about like chat is that you have all these windows open and you can like ask it to go out and do tasks, and then it comes back to you in an asynchronous way. Whereas the problem with the browsers that I fell into, and I feel like a lot of people did, is like you end up being like a monkey sitting there just like watching the mouse move, and you're like, okay, I could just do that myself. I'll just click that button, right? So yeah, I think OpenClaw feels like it's closer in the right direction, where there's not this front end UI that, like, the only reason why these UIs are there in the first place is just so you can kind of watch it, right? But I think it adds a lot of complexity when you're doing that. And it's probably not the best way to actually be able to navigate the internet in the AI way.
It's a good proof of concept to show the people what an AI is capable of, so that they understand what the AI is actually doing under the hood. But then once people understand what an AI actually can do under the hood, you can just abstract it away and let it just run, give slight updates. Like in Claude, where you can just click.
It feels like when I'm watching a slot machine when I'm waiting for the result, where you're almost, it's like, and you said it, like you feel like you're in a daze, like you're waiting for the result. If it was hidden from you, it distracts you less and you can move on with the next task.
Mm-hmm.
So I get that point there. A small side topic on this, because there's a lot of these new, I guess, like spins on agentic AI applications now. The one I'm most excited to try is, I think it's called like Miniclaw or something, where it's just like a wrapper that allows you to set up very fast in like, 1 minute, 2 minutes. And the reason I'm interested in that is because I want to run like a crazy experiment where I spin up like 100 of them and see if I can do some like weird swarming stuff on like social media or Reddit or something like this.
What you're going to need there is social accounts. So you got to maybe buy some social accounts with history that you can use to then opt in to those hundreds of bots, because otherwise they might get blocked. And I think that's another market that's actually opening up now. And I've had someone, I'm not going to mention the name, tell me this about, he was playing around with OpenClaw and he said, yeah, I've been looking into this black market of social accounts with a history. So buy those, because if you can get your hands on some of those for cheap still, you can actually spin up these things that you've been telling Luca. And like how it's been in crypto a long time has been like, okay, we can help you get X amount of users. We can help you get X amount of views, retweets, comments, and this and that. If you then have an army of 1,000 agents, which all have a history on their Twitter feed or wherever else you use, that suddenly can be turned into some value as well. And that's not alone for faking numbers, but that's also for just putting them in different groups, having AI agents running around.
I'm interested to do it like where it's not just like playing like the post or retweet, like where it's like you actually give them like something to advocate for, and they like actually go out and like interact with the world, discuss the idea. You know what I mean? Like
yeah,
like more
definitely.
for like a change making exercise, but yeah.
Oh, so many doors that are opening. Qwen introduced Qwen 3.5 medium model series. This is a model that can be run locally on almost every computer. Not every computer, but the 32 gigabyte RAM MacBook can now run Qwen, and they say this is at the same level as the Opus 3.5. The previous version of Opus, which was already super good. Qwen is another Chinese model. China is always just one little step behind, but they're doing it great and much cheaper. I think this is another model that's going to be used by many of the OpenClaw crowd as replacing Kimi or Minimax, or have different use cases. We'll see what the timeline figures out, which models is best for what. Ben, what do you think about Qwen? Are you going to run it locally?
Yeah, I don't think I will. I mean, I'm using like a VPS for my OpenClaw. And yeah, I still feel like Claude is the best, right? And we're not at a point where it feels like a lot of models are really good at using OpenClaw. I think a few models are very good at using it, right? And for me, Claude is that. I don't know, but we'll see. Because like from a cost perspective, to me, like that's definitely the interesting part, right? That's the cost and the accessibility aspect. The fact that you can run this on a MacBook. I know Chamath and Jason JCal have been going back and forth in like the last few weeks about whether or not these AI models are going to be run on the cloud or are they going to be run locally on a device. JCal and a bunch of people are going out and they're buying Mac Minis, Mac Studios, and they're just like bunching them up and then they're daisy chaining them together to create some sort of like data center in your house. But I kind of agree with Chamath, like just from a pure like do what you're best at kind of concept, right? Probably data centers are going to be the best at being able to run these as fast as possible. And for me, when I'm running a model and I'm running an agent, I don't want to wait 5 minutes. I'm willing to pay an extra amount of money if I can get an answer within 10 seconds, right? And I've tried running like Llama on my computer with Llama 3.3, or no, it might have been GPT, one of the OpenAI ones, and it was so slow, right? And I've got like the newest MacBook Pro. I've got like 16 or 32 gigs of RAM. So I still think like we're a little ways away from these local models being really applicable for day-to-day usage. I just think like obviously data centers know how to run these things as fast as possible. Like your computer that you're stacking on your desk at normal room temperature probably is not going to be as performant as it.
Totally agree.
I mean, Quen is a really impressive work from them because just a few months ago, I was checking out their image model and it had not fully, but it had really caught up with Nano Banana. And but we're going to discuss later Nano Banana too. But that's what I think is the only downside from these models, at least, is to me, they're still always trailing the leading one. So I would rather pay a bit more to be ahead. So, yeah.
But how much is a bit, right? Because these, they cut cost by 60 to 90% compared to the leading models, and they're only a few months behind. Like Opus 4.5 a few weeks ago, everyone was using Opus 4.5 and it was the best thing ever. Then 4.6 comes out and it's the best thing ever again, but the previous best thing ever you can now use via, for example, Quen for
Yeah,
1/10
but this is
of the
matching
price.
Sonnet, it's not even matching Opus. So it's like...
Is it? I think it's matching Opus 3.5.
No, it matches Sonnet on coding benchmarks.
Sonnet. Yeah, Sonnet.
Yeah, my bad. Yeah. Yeah,
but
true.
also, I mean, coding benchmarks are kind of like bullshit too.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people like have gotten around to that, right? And I forget what the term is, but it's like you're basically bench maxing, I think they call it, right? Where you're just trying to benchmark.
Grok is great at that.
Grok is great at that. Gemini also really good at that. I think Gemini is like amazing at certain things, but like everyone.
So are some AIs already like book smart and some others are a bit more street smart? Like, is this a thing already?
Yeah, literally. That's so funny. And I think we'd all agree, like Sonnet 4.5 is probably the most street smart model out there for most tasks.
Street smart. We just coined the term here, street smart models.
It's street smart models. But yeah, I mean, I think speed. Yeah, go ahead.
No, I've been noticing this myself, but my OpenClaw is just kind of stupid compared to your OpenClaw, Ben. And I've been using Kimi, and then I recently tried using Minimax, and it's just not great. Like it's not nice to work with. She's productive. I say she. It's productive for like 5 or 6 interactions, and then the 7th it starts hallucinating or start making things up, and that's what you've been telling as well. But yes, I've been telling it in the soul to not make things up, and then two interactions later, I send a screenshot and it's making things up again instead of saying, "Hey, my image model is not up to date." So I'm very surprised when I see actually the one that you created, the agent, Ben, that we've been using to prep this podcast, and that's been listening on our WhatsApp or our Telegram chat, and it feels such a different level compared, like, and yes, the internet says Minimax, the newer one, is coming close to Opus 4.5, and Kimi is great, but in my opinion and experience, it's nowhere near, or either I set it up wrong, and I don't think I've set it up that wrong. I've put a lot of time and effort in it, but it's nowhere near what producer Nick is actually doing for us and this podcast.
And you think the main difference is which API you're using, right?
Yes, it's all about what it's powered by, right? It's the orchestration layer, how you're orchestrating it, and you're pushing your message to the smart model, and then the smart model does something with it. And if it's just very expensive to run Claude on everything, right? If you don't have the $200 subscription and you want to pay as you go, it's gonna get very expensive. But I think it's worth it after all. If you really want to make use of OpenClaw, you better use the Claude Max subscription, even though it's against terms of service. So I don't know how long that's still gonna be possible, but it's just a huge difference. And I've been playing around with setting up the architecture correctly so that you have a smart orchestration model that then delegates to other models that are good at, for example, writing, and one is good at video and one is good at image. But even there, I haven't figured it out yet. I'm still playing with it, and I tried adding one of my agents to another group as well to do similar things as Nick does for us. And OpenClaw broke again. I've been spending 2 hours trying to debug. It's just, I don't know. I love seeing how Ben is going around his agent and how he just says do it, and then the agent says I cannot. I'm missing this, and then Ben says you can actually do it, and then it just finds a solution. I didn't get there yet with mine.
Yeah, and I forget. I heard this on a podcast, and it kind of reignited an understanding of how like the new models are being built. But basically, what they're doing is they're taking the previous generation, and then they're having that one like train the new one, right? And I'm doing that with like my products, like Interview Sidekick, for instance. I'm basically just recording a ton of data on users and like looking at their responses. I'm using like an open source like Llama 3.3 because it needs to be really fast for me to be able to serve these responses in real time for people. But then I'm having Opus 4.6, like the state of the art model, look at that stupid friend of his, right? That came out like 2 years ago, and I'm saying, how can we just prompt engineer this as much as possible so that the model can't get smarter until a new open source model comes out, but how can I actually get like the prompt as good as possible? And basically Opus 4.6 is just running tests all the time now, and it's creating like a version 2 of my prompt, a version 3, and I'm saying, great, go out and use OpenRouter to simulate what that would look like, and like how do you. So I'm asking 4.6 to basically spin up new versions of that Llama 3.3 model. And it's pretty cool. Like, I don't know. I think it's kind of tangentially related to like your concept, Rick, but it feels like now this kind of recursive learning and getting better process is happening. And yeah, that's how it applies to here. I think probably 6 months from now, Kimi, Quen, all of these models are going to be at like the Sonnet 4 or maybe Sonnet 4.5 level, because if I'm able to do this as someone who's not a software engineer, to be able to like reprompt and create a better model, then I'm sure that someone in China at this company is able to create that next Kimi 3.5 version that's been just optimized off of Sonnet 4.6, and having Sonnet 4.6 like say, oh yeah, that's a better answer, that's also a better answer, that's a worse answer, and then they train off that. Does that make sense?
It does. What it makes me think as well, though, is like, if AI is just going to continue increasing exponentially better and better, like does it ever flatten out at a point where then maybe not using the most cutting edge model starts to make sense?
Yeah, I think that's a use case per use case basis, right? And that's what you see already now, how people are optimizing their OpenClaw infrastructure. And
costs in general going down. So like what it used to cost to use, through GPT 3.5, it's a much better GPT-5 and whatever is coming next, and much cheaper as well. So I think this question of cost and compute, like it will just become like a shocking statement. Can you believe that in 2026 we used to spend $200 a day on credits, just to code an app?
Yeah.
Talking about different models and different use cases, I think Nano Banana is still the best one out there right now for visual creation. And Google announced Nano Banana 2, which is built on Gemini Flash, meaning it's pro-level image creation and editing at a faster speed than the previous Nano Banana. I have been using it actually the last 2 days. I like the outputs because my questions were quite kind of easy, and I gave example images to take inspiration from. So yes, it indeed came out a bit faster, and if I have to believe the numbers, then also cheaper for me via the API. Luca, you've been into the image creation space at the previous startup you worked at as well, which in my opinion was close to getting disrupted by Nano Banana. That was one of my thoughts. But what are your thoughts on the evolution of Nano Banana and Nano Banana 2 now coming out?
Definitely, I still need to go take a deeper look at Nano Banana 2 myself. The previous version was already making some very, very good results. It used to still struggle a bit with people's likeness, so getting people's face correct across different images, but it was very close, so I'm sure they've moved along even better. But yeah, I think the companies that started out in this space, a company that I'm an advisor at, Better Studio, is in. I think this year is the year that it's basically indistinguishable, the work that they produce and the work that photographers can do. So for companies like that have built, a good workflow solving photography for a particular niche. In our case, it was fashion, but it could be also for other industries, beauty, real estate. I think, this is definitely going to remove the need for photographers to produce very high quality content that goes online. The legal I think there's still there's a lack of maybe understanding how best to do things. I think if you're using AI photos for selling online, it should be done ethically in some way. So users should be aware if you're buying an apartment and the images are kind of touched up with AI, they should be informed of that, right? And I think that's just the best approach. But yeah, I think it's not the best time to be a typical photographer if you're not using this technology, because again, I know many photographers and videographers who are creating content. Maybe they figure out in their when they're editing the video that they forgot to get a particular scene, and they don't regenerate everything, but they just fill up that missing shot that they needed, and the end product is authentic, is very genuine, exactly what they wanted to get. So yeah, I think we'll see. Yeah, go for it.
Is Google gonna build every layer of the stack here? Like they built now like Nano Banana and Nano Banana Pro. They have some other use cases already that are being either in beta and testing, where you can go from a product image to a generated image or a bunch of generated images. Then they have the whole advertising stack. They have other pieces of the whole stack. Is Google coming after everyone's business? Like if you're gonna build a digital business, then you gotta see, okay, how can Google not disrupt me in 2 weeks from now? Otherwise, I gotta start over. Because that feels like how fast it's going actually with Google announcements these days.
Yeah, but I mean, Google is the infrastructure. Right? If you need a B2B use case, you either need someone who's building you something that's scalable, or you need a product that's leveraging the best tech out there in their own workflow. So yeah, I don't think Google is going to be on the ground level for everything, just as much as we're building ChatGPT wrappers, or used to be building ChatGPT wrappers. People are building on top of Nano Banana very powerful and useful tools.
That's
and of course, it's about solving it for a particular niche, right? So yeah, the way you solve it for one industry is not going to be the same as another.
Yeah, package it for the right people and have them use it that way and plug in the Google APIs.
Yeah, if you're generating thousands of photos per day or you're not going to just upload them into a chat box and say, hey, make me a nice HD photo. No, you want something scalable, repeatable, and also.
But Google is on a generational run here. They have definitely turned around how they were like 2 years ago. Everyone was saying Google is losing the AI race. They were part of the creation of AI, but they never really followed through. And I think now over the past year, Google has actually been taking like users away from ChatGPT, at least convinced me to get a Gemini subscription. And I've heard other people say that they canceled their ChatGPT and went back to Gemini or been using Gemini way more. And then with the image generation as well, they've just taken over and they are pushing out update after update. I'm always surprised. Every week there's something new from the Google side. So yeah, if I was an investor in Google, I would be happy to see this.
Yeah, I am. Yeah. I mean, they're in SpaceX and some other things, but out of topic.
Yeah, like I feel like 2024 was the year of OpenAI. Everyone was super bullish on OpenAI, right? And then last year, Google made that generational run come back. This year now it's Anthropic and Claude. And it's just really interesting to see like kind of how they specialize in different things and like the strategy behind like what different folks are good at. You know, I don't think Anthropic or Claude even has an image generation model, right? Like they're very precise at understanding their lane, and it's like basically coding, writing, and kind of that's it. But then Google, they don't really focus on like the voice side, right? Like OpenAI, ChatGPT kind of is trying to build this more like, let's say for the personal agent, like the personal person, basically. And Google is saying, okay, like let's look at Google Workspace. Let's look at all of these different touch points that our consumers, our users, our employee people who are using Google Workspace, and let's figure out how we can alleviate these problems. And like Nano Banana comes out, VO3 comes out, right? Even anti-gravity and all of that, right? So they're really building, it feels like the most complementary workspace for their employees. I don't know. My only like take on or feedback on like Nano Banana personally using it is, that phrase, good artists copy, great artists steal. It really feels like with like the Nano Banana products or the outputs that they do a really good job when you give it a reference point. But if you don't give it a reference point, it kind of does a shit job. Like I even tried having it create a God mode podcast image for us, and it was terrible. It looked like the images from 3 years ago that like even ChatGPT was creating.
Our banner image has been made with Nano Banana, though. It did.
Has
This
it?
wasn't. Yes, the one on our
I must
website,
say,
Godmode
I
Pod,
must say,
Nano Banana.
But
think
did you
I-
give it? Did you
I
give
think
it something? Yeah.
I
Did you give it
I
something
gave
to
it.
start with?
I did give it a screenshot of us sitting in the garden and that panel, and then I said, make it like I asked Claude for a prompt, and then Claude gave me the prompt for a cinematic black and white stage, high quality 4K, this and that, and then so it had a reference and it knew where to go, and then it's only small tweaks. But yeah, if you start from scratch, it's like everything in AI, right? It's all about like a good input gives a good result. Bad input just gives you generic replies and probably not going to satisfy you.
Yeah, I honestly, I went into so much depth with prompting with the Nano Banana and all of the models over the last year. You can get really specific with them, and it used to make a really big difference from getting just like not what you wanted to what you wanted. I think that it's a skill in itself. So if you're not using a lot of image generation, then I can see why maybe you weren't getting where you want to go. But yeah, I don't usually start with just a raw text prompt either. Yeah, I do use references often for image generation.
Yeah, and ask an AI to create a prompt. Like if I have a thread running where I'm discussing in ChatGPT about an idea or brainstorming, and then or in Claude, I say, okay, now I need an image for this. Just give me a prompt to request this image, because then that thread has all the knowledge. It's gonna use that knowledge, put it into a short prompt, and then I put that into Nana Banana. I don't just go Nana Banana, describe it myself. Use an AI to write your prompts, bro. Come on.
Exactly.
It's 2026.
You get the AI to see the image, describe it, and then use that. Yeah, that's good advice.
We have 10 more minutes on this podcast, so I want to go into the Ben setup of Ben's OpenClaw, because Ben, I think, increased his last week at least. When you sent the screenshot, I saw that your MRR almost doubled since you started using OpenClaw, or more than doubled. And you also introduced us to producer Nick in our Telegram chat. Producer Nick has been collecting all our ideas, putting it into dockets, the docket we're looking at right now. Producer Nick also created a landing page for what he's been building. So if other podcasters out there are interested to potentially soon start using all the tech that Nick has been building, you can go to godmodepod.com/waitlist to sign up for the Nick tech. Everything we've been building around getting your own podcast up and running, especially pre-production. Post-production is something that's probably going to come over the next few weeks. But if you want to join, or if you want to try it out, go to godmodepod.com/waitlist to sign up. And now I want to go deeper into Ben's setup of OpenClaw, because yours is much smarter than mine, and I'm jealous. You've built some incredible use cases like the UGC use case that definitely sparked my interest, as well as this agent that is helping us now with the podcast. So Ben, the stage is yours. Can you share the coolest use cases that you've been using.
So these are my employees, and basically I've got like 10 of them, right? So I have Sam. Sam's like my chief of staff. She's my head honcho. I basically have her so that she can delegate work out to everyone else. And what's cool here is I built this mission control where you've got all of the activity that she's worked on. And, it's kind of like a log. To me, like OpenClaw, the thing that was really the breakthrough was being able to organize memory in an effective way where then this personal agent can go back in time and see what was worked on and like not forget about things. So Sam, she's basically delegating it out, and I'm trying to do this also to be in like a token efficient way, because she's like a really powerful model. I give her Opus 4.6, but then all the other models, all the other employees are basically Sonnet 4.6. Right? So Devin, he's my developer. I've got Karish, she's my customer support person. And basically within here, I have all these Telegram chats where I'm basically talking with each of them and I'm setting up certain, things. So Frankie's my finance person. And by having all these different Telegram chats, limiting the amount of token usage, right? By like just maintaining the context to things relevant to each person's job. Like imagine if you're at a company and you have to listen to every single conversation that was going on in the company, like you might do a worse job at your job because you've just got so many different competing priorities and things going on. Basically, I'm doing that, right? So I've got all of them set up in Telegram, and they're all kind of specific personas that are focused on certain things. So I will message Sam if there's a new task, whereas I will message Mia for social media related stuff. But what's really cool, I've set up this UGC product, which I may actually be SaaSifying and building my own. But I've got all my creators here, right, by company. So I can go into Sales Echo and I can basically look at all of the impression counts for each of them. I can click in, I can see like, okay, how much have I paid them? What's their CPM and all of that. So yeah, this is all kind of vibe coded, if you will, by using OpenClaw to then basically like build out this mission control that's really kind of touching different areas of my life. I've got Miles, he's like helping me with like marketing, and any like he's connected to Google Search Console, he's connected to Google Ads. I have Marco's my spin-off on Mark Zuckerberg. He's my paid ads guy. So he's connected to Meta Ads, and he's helping me run my ads campaign. I have Jude, who's working on like content related stuff. And then I've got Mia, who's like helping me with like social media stuff. So just like you would have people at a company, right, that are kind of working on these different tasks, I've got these different personas who are sitting in an office, just like a normal workspace. But I can click in and I can see what they've worked on. I can see even how much I'm using and how much I'm spending on each employee, and then really trying to optimize different parts of the business by, again, using these personas.
And this is you talking to each different persona if you have a certain task for them, or this is you delegating everything to Sam and Sam pushing it to do the right personas?
Both. Initially, I'll say, hey, Sam, I want you to kind of go out and talk to Devin and work on this task. And she'll then send a text in our group chat with Devin and say, hey, this is Sam. Just wanted to see, like, if you were basically like telling what the task is. But then over time, I might end up talking to Devin directly. But I try to have Sam understand the initial kind of on-ramp so that she's in the loop and that she knows what's happening. And then I also ask Sam to read all the conversations afterwards so that she can keep a tab on what's going on with all these different people.
Super
And
cool.
these are all set up in the same VPS, right?
These are all set up in the same VPS. Yeah.
And if you do you create a different Telegram bot per agent, or is that all sub agents from Sam?
Yeah. So I am creating different groups, right? So you can create a new group in Telegram, and then from there you can essentially like message them directly and say like, hey, this is the bot for this person. And
No,
Have
but
they ever surprised you so far,
Oh.
like that they did something and you were like, wow?
I want to push back on that quickly. Like, how do you set up the bot or the group? Because I tried this. I tried to set up a second agent on the same token basically, and that was not possible on the same bot fodder token. So I actually had to create a second bot on Telegram to make it work. Otherwise, my stuff broke. So I would love to see how you set this up.
Yeah. So they're all under one bot, right? They're all under
They're
one.
all under one bot. Whoa. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Hmm.
Which I think is good because then they get to share some of the credentialing, right? You don't want to be setting up APIs necessarily for all of your bots at once, but there is also kind of this like I do wonder like, okay, how much is this a different employee if it's the same bot and all of that? But yeah, I think considering that they're different conversations in different context windows, it's kind of like it's a different person. They just have the same credentials, if you will.
Well, gotta go a bit deeper into setting up these different groups under the same bot next week, because that's definitely something I'm interested in to also do, because I see many use cases to where I could just add this in. For example, if you have a client, add one in the client that then, if it's under the same bot name, it would be awesome, or under the same bot token, it would be great, because then indeed, like you say, it funnels somehow the memory and the API and the usage into one. Yeah. We're gonna go much deeper into this next week. We gotta cut off in time today. There's one more time that I wanna repeat this. If you wanna run your pod on God mode, you can go to godmodepod.com/waitlist, and you can sign up there now to run your pod on God mode as well. We'll send you an email once we have some more details on this.
Exactly. So fire your current podcast manager and,
Exactly. And hire Nick. Nick is a very good-looking boy.
Yeah, and shout out to JCal for the inspiration behind Nick. If Jason ever ends up seeing this podcast, he'll know that, we took a lot of inspiration by naming the All In Pods producer after our producer for this podcast.
Yeah, we should actually send him an email because he's investing in interesting OpenClaw projects, and this is actually an interesting OpenClaw project.
We'll send him this clip where we explain that we created an OpenClaw agent that's listening in our Telegram group, and that actually created a full docket today from all the topics that it found over our weekly discussion, created a docket for us, and created a landing page, and it's going to productize itself, and it's learning by doing and being in our group, and we're only week 2, and we have so many processes set up. So I really think this is going to be a pre-production podcast SaaS that's going to go to to 100K MRR pretty fast. So Jason, you can get in, send us that 125K check now. We'll come to the accelerator. We do that. It's good. Handshake. Great. Okay. Let's get this
Just join the pod. Get him on the pod.
I am the soon-to-be greatest moderator. Jason still has that spot, but I'm coming for you, Jason. And thank you, guys. This was another amazing episode. Excited for this.
All right.
Awesome,
bye-bye.
guys. Nice chatting. Bye.
Bye. Play that tune.